Cigars and Price for Thursday, July 30th, 2026. We're a presentation of Bet365 at Bet365. Boring games, a thing of the past. Now, there's always a reason to tune in, even if the score isn't one of them. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Hi, Matt. This is Blake. Mike's hitting switches and conducting things. We got a big show for you today, and we ask if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button or that like button. We would really appreciate. And, of course, make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. Excellent. Beautiful sunny day.
Just this place in the summer, man.
It's not cooking, but it's nice. Next week looks nice. Funny, the weekends have not been very good. For those of you that have to work Monday to Friday, the weekends have let you down. If you can get away midweek, for some reason, Mother Nature's being nicer there.
We always do just sort of our side trips during the summer. You know, Seattle, go see your family in Prince George, Penticton, because we just love being in this neck of the woods in the summer.
Why wouldn't
right?
you? Yeah.
It's when the rain comes, November, February. That's when I want to get away.
Yeah, for sure.
We had neighbors go to Hawaii a couple weeks ago, and like the first few days they were in Hawaii, it was 30 degrees here.
Yeah.
You mean 30 degrees there and spend all the money. You mean 30 degrees here? We got beaches.
We do. Water's a little warmer there?
Yeah, it's definitely warmer. Yeah. Better fish, too.
Not as much bang for the buck as a November trip to Hawaii. Then, by all means.
Love the November trip to Hawaii. We used to do the February trip to Hawaii.
Yeah, that's
You just can't take it anymore? Okay, too much rain, too much gray. Let's get... people say the summer is the slow season for sports, huh? Whew. Look what we got going on today.
Yeah.
We had massive baseball news break yesterday after the show. There's more on BC Place Stadium, who owns, who leases it.
GoldenEye's got a new coach. Whitecaps make a signing.
Practice facility news from the Canucks. Ryan Johnson claps back on budget. We got everything going on. So
Crazy.
much is happening.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to a ton of hockey here in a second, including the Canucks and City of Vancouver announcement on the practice facility, as well as two hockey-themed guests today, and Jeff Marek and Harman Dayal. But let's catch up and get to the baseball story with our Nation Gear poll question. Do you believe an MLB team is coming to Vancouver? You can vote yes. You can vote no. Do so at the S&P X and YouTube channels. So the announcement yesterday afternoon, City of Vancouver selects the Show Vancouver as its preferred partner to pursue an MLB expansion team. Now, the city there had been movement on this file through the winter and spring. We had heard that Zach Ross of the Cape Group, a real estate development company based here in Vancouver, had been pursuing city approval to be the group that pursues a team. The city asked for submissions. They reviewed the submissions. They said at the time they're only going to go forward if there are serious people involved. And yesterday we heard from the city that, yes, they believe that Mr. Ross and his group is serious. Ross saying in the release, quote, "Vancouver is my home. Our vision is a world-class MLB franchise anchored by a landmark ballpark and mixed-use real estate development at an iconic site." Now, that is Nat Bailey Stadium. That it definitely qualifies as an iconic site for baseball, of course, celebrating 75 years of Nat Bailey Stadium this year. Capilano Stadium once upon a time. But, of course, it's not the only iconic site. And what was missing from yesterday's announcement was a specific location in town for the ballpark. But if you've been following this story, there was a signed letter of support from more than 150 business people, community people, leaders, as they were called, including former BC Premier Mike Harcourt,
John Furlong,
Lululemon founder Chip Wilson, like some heavy hitters.
Some that could bring money to the table, some that could bring expertise to the table.
Yeah. And it does seem like Mr. Ross has his ducks lined up in terms of the people who will be assisting this bid. BRS Sports LLC is involved. It's a team, according to the release, a team of 3 of North America's most accomplished sports franchises and sports facility development professionals joining the bid. Importantly, a gentleman named Jack Sperling, who has advised on the purchase or sale of 14 different pro sports teams in the NHL, NBA, MLB, MLS, and others, and has helped with the construction or renovation of 8 pro sports facilities. He has served on the NHL and NBA Board of Governors. He's been a special advisor to the NBA Commissioner. He's been an alternate governor of the Tampa Bay Lightning for the last 9 years. We know someone who knows him and just says, like, this is a maestro. This is a guy who gets things done in the world of sports, bids, stadiums.
And is a rainmaker, right? Like, all that stuff happens with money, and these are the kinds of people that bring money to the table.
Right. Also, a gentleman named Ray Baker is a part of this. He's a real estate and business guy in Colorado who helped with the construction of Coors Field, the home of the Colorado Rockies. There's a gentleman by the name of Tim Romani who's involved. He is the founder of a company called Icon Venue Group, which was acquired by creative arts agency CAA, which is a major player in the representation field. Mm-hmm. The new company is called CAA Icon. The release, according to the show Vancouver, says Romani is universally recognized as one of the world's preeminent sports facility developers. Others include Populous Ballpark Architects, a sports venue design firm, and Gensler Real Estate Development Architects and Planners, who will be involved in the mixed-use development next to the ballpark because, as we have long been talking about on this show, mostly in relation to the Whitecaps, but it is the norm now that you don't just build a stadium or a ballpark because that's too expensive on its own. It has to be a mixed-use development with commercial, with residential. That's how you make the money work to finance the construction of the ballpark. And, of course, in the realm of a Major League Baseball expansion franchise, the expansion fee, which will be several $billion. Now, the release says that CAA Icon is representing, well, the money person. And that is the one thing that is missing here. We don't know the identity of the money person or people who would be the owner of the franchise. Now, Zach Ross looks to be the front man, and that's great that you've got a local front man who has gotten the project this far, and we'll see how well Mr. Ross does in terms of connecting with people and sports fans, baseball fans in the city of Vancouver.
And he may ultimately get a 10% stake in it.
I'm sure he will
like
have
that,
a small ownership stake, but
the bulk.
But the bottom line is, whoever is the majority owner is the key person.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that. Whether they want to be silent and let Mr. Ross be the face of the franchise and do all of the dealings and just do the money, which is not ideal, but you do see it, or whether there will come a date later where this person, well, they're going to have to reveal themselves one way or the other. The question is how actively involved on a day-to-day in a public-facing role would this person or persons be? There have been rumors that people involved with the San Francisco 49ers of the National Football League are a part of this. Of course, one of the minority partners of the San Francisco 49ers just bought the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I reached out to a couple of people. I was told it's not him, Mr. Kosla, who was one of the co-founders of Sun Microsystems and one of the top venture capitalists the world over. So I thought that might be a really nice dovetail for the guy, huh? You own the NFL team in Seattle, you own the baseball team in Vancouver. You go have fun weekends and those two Pacific Northwest hubs. But I'm told it's not him. I do have somebody telling who I know is a business person in town who's connected who says, no, there is very serious money here. Do not doubt the money. We have talked about the majority owners of the San Francisco 49ers is the York family. You may know them as the DeBartolo family if you're a longtime NFL fan. Of course, the great Eddie DeBartolo, the owner of the 49ers, has delivered all those Super Bowl championships in the 80s. His sister now owns the team, and her son runs the 49ers. And if we're talking about that family being involved, then that is a very, very wealthy and significant family that has been
But I think you hit on something here. We're talking about American money here. Like the chances of like a majority Canadian owner, it's not likely. Now, that's not terribly worrisome for me. It's not disqualifying because if you're going to go through all of the rigmarole of laying out the money to build a Major League Baseball stadium in Vancouver, you're here for the long run. Mm-hmm. You know, like you don't do that willy-nilly. I'd be more worried about U.S. ownership if they were taking over an existing building and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But if you're building a stadium, you're going through enough sweat equity that you're sticking around for a bit. So I'm not terribly worried about that. But, you know, the problem here, and I'm trying not to be negative Nancy about this story here, but there's just so many things to overcome. A pure just lack of land. Like, it's a bigger footprint than what the Whitecaps are looking for.
We're going to get to land.
You need, a person with multiple billions of dollars to spend. That's another hurdle. You need demand. And I can tell you, the amount of times in my business, we both get chatted up at parties and at get-togethers. The amount of times that somebody said, "Hey, when are we going to get a Major League Baseball team?" is zero. That's how many times I've been asked about that. And I've been asked about a lot of things in my career. That question has never been posed to me. And then you can have everything lined up. And guess what? Major League Baseball is in charge of the process. They need to say, we have an expansion team available. And has there been mentions? Yes. There's been multiple mentions in the history of the commissioner where he has said, hey, we like the looks of that city. That's all that is, though. It's a passing reference. There is actually no expansion process underway right now. So there's just so many hoops here.
There isn't an expansion process underway, but there is expected to be one. It's kind of like the NBA with Silver. Oh, we don't have an expansion process underway, but everybody in Vegas and Seattle was prepping bids and knew that one.
But they're teasing way more than baseball is.
Should also mention 49ers own Leeds United of the English Premier League. So they do seem to be in the sports buying up teams. Parag Marath also involved in that ownership group on the Leeds side of things. The bottom line is that Zach Ross, in terms of personnel, seems to have his ducks in a row, assuming this mystery owner, money person has the money, and it's going to take a lot of money. The San Diego Padres are the most recent team to sell, and they sold for $3.9 billion, financing a ballpark and mixed-use residential commercial area is going to take several billion more than that. So these are very, very sizable investments. Mayor Sim has said that no public funds would be used, but what about public land? Is that another matter, with many believing the site for the ballpark would be on that mostly vacant lot on the southern end of the Cambie Bridge in Olympic Village, being used as a parking lot right now by the VPD, and I guess a storage lot for other. But, I mean, for those of you on visual platforms, you can see it there by the bridge and by False Creek, and then the next photo is the Pièce de Résistance. I mean, take a look at what it could look like if you're looking out onto the
I don't see that
downtown skyline.
Am I drunk here? I don't see how
it's a bigger lot, I think, than you think, Blake. But yes,
that That looks spectacular, but
here's how it would look. Here's the satellite view of looking down on it, where it would be stationed. You see it's there in the
yeah. So if you take the
middle of the
BC Place
screen.
footprint, it looks like it probably would just fit.
Well,
on that
I
spot.
think it's going to be smaller than BC Place, Blake. BC Place is a gigantic footprint. But, yeah, I mean, again, no location was specified here. But needless to say, you've got to be accessible on foot to residents. You got to be accessible on public transit, right?
Yeah, both of that.
You got both of that right there.
Yeah, it's a good spot. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about it.
City said in its release, quote, any future project agreements, site selection, land use decisions, development approvals, lease arrangements, or other related matters would be subject to future council consideration and approval. So, of course, while this may be something that Mayor Sim and ABC are championing right now, we do have a municipal election coming up in the fall. This is not a quick process, and you would have to have the necessary political leaders on board when it gets down to crunch time. Charlotte, Nashville, Portland, Salt Lake City also expected to be interested in Major League Baseball expansion franchises. There is talk of expanding from baseball at 30 teams right now is the only of the big four leagues that is at 30 teams without a formal expansion process that is going forward to increase membership because, of course, the NBA has its process underway, and we anticipate Seattle and Vegas will get NBA teams. I heard our friend Steve Ewan of the Province on radio yesterday on NW saying one of the key things here when you talk about Major League Baseball, and they get a say in this as well, is that Vancouver, Mr. Ross, his partner, are going to have to tell a better story to the existing 30 governors and commissioner of Major League Baseball than the cities of Charlotte, Nashville, Portland, Salt Lake City, and whichever other community chooses to bid, if in fact it is going to be those communities plus. And look, our old friend Tom Manek of the Sport Market used to always talk about Vancouver as a gateway city. And he would talk about the NBA experience and saying, look, you were in Portland, Seattle, Vancouver. Then you lost Vancouver and Seattle. You lost your gateway cities to the Pacific. And
you also stranded Portland in the process.
Yeah, you sure did. And now Portland's at risk with new owner Tom Dundon. Now, look, baseball, like other sports, has international money in mind. They realize they can only get so big in North America, Canada, the United States, and that there is an awful lot of people in places like India and places like China, not to mention a lot of money in Japan, that you want to be able to access. And, of course, baseball is doing very well in Japan. Thank you, Shohei Ohtani, who has become an absolute behemoth in terms of an economic driver for the sport for the Los Angeles Dodgers and accessing all of those Japanese eyeballs for a country that has long played and enjoyed baseball. So Vancouver, I think, gets you a little further ahead. I'd be very surprised if Nashville doesn't get a team, Blake. Like, Nashville's a very hot city right now.
Small city, though.
Well, yeah, but a lot of money in Nashville as well. A lot of money moving to Nashville, in part because of no state income tax in Tennessee. And not to mention Nashville already a destination, particularly for those who love country music. Vancouver Sun wrote on this and had Mario Canseco, the president of Research Co., quoted, and his research shows more than 7 in 10 British Columbians would welcome a Major League Baseball team in Vancouver, and fewer than 1 in 10 think having an MLB team is a bad idea. I mean, okay, those are really good numbers for Mr. Ross and his group.
Pretty rosy picture.
It's a little bit different when, rubber starts meeting the road, right? Vancouver City Council, let's get to Karam Sumal. Yeah, here's Karam Sumal. He's the co-founder of the Daily Hive, business guy around town. He has long been a supporter of this, and he tweets, Vancouver City Council, the province, and all communities should have one shared economic priority, bringing Major League Baseball to Vancouver, not disregarding the Caps. They seem to be working on something already. 81 home games every year would fuel our hospitality and tourism sectors, create thousands of jobs, generate hundreds of millions in economic activity. This isn't just about baseball. It's about building a permanent economic engine for BC. Dare I say, a little bit of hope in a city and province that desperately needs some. With messaging with Carm today, we're going to have him on the show next week. I would certainly take on and challenge some of the points that he makes there. One of the things, and be prepared for this, everybody, because you may hear this around the Whitecaps and you may hear this around baseball going forward. People who are for pro sports teams, league commissioners, owners, executives, like to tell the public about the economic impact that sports teams make. And they're right in a sense. They're right in a sense that if you drop a sports team into a downtown core, you will see surrounding local businesses reap economic benefits. There is no question that the bars and restaurants in Gastown and Yaletown benefit from the fact that the Canucks play 41 home games, the Lions and Whitecaps play up to, 30 or so home games at BC Place. There's no doubt about that. But it is a localized effect. Study after study from economists will tell you, yeah, sure, the area around the facility gets an economic boon. But if you took the team out and there were no more games to go to in that region, then across the broader community, say Metro Vancouver, it's not like people just pocket their discretionary dollars and say, oh, there's no hockey or football or soccer games to go to, so I'm not going to spend on entertainment. They just find other entertainment avenues to spend that same dollar. So I want to get that out there because, we're sports guys. We love sports. I would love to see Major League Baseball, and I absolutely want to save the Caps. But by the same token, the broader community and its economic welfare does not hinge in the slightest on the presence of professional sports teams.
I agree with that in most part, but I think if you create atmosphere, people are prodded to spend money when they maybe weren't thinking about spending money in the first place. So I disagree that it's a finite, fixed amount of discretionary income that can't be increased. If you are enticing people with whatever X is, a new Vancouver Playhouse.
Just telling you, Blake, study after study from people who research this will tell you, across a broader community, they just find other things to spend it on.
I get what they're saying, and for a percentage of the people in a baseball stadium, let's say, that would be true. But I don't think it's for all. And again, this is coming from a guy. Like, I don't need Major League Baseball to be here. I don't think there's a demand for it. I don't think it should come here. So I'm arguing against myself here in some regards. But I'm saying I am a proponent of if you build it, they will come, and in large part. And it is incumbent upon a city. Like they're making an announcement, or made an announcement earlier this week, about increasing the amount of music venues in this town because we are the lowest ratio of musical art seats to population in like North America. Like we don't have enough venues for the arts. And I'm telling you, like P&E, I've not been going to a lot of concerts with the P&E amphitheater and all this. Like I'm super excited, super motivated to spend more money on music. Yep. And it's not going to be at the expense of anything else. Like I don't know where I'd be trimming from. So I don't know that it's a full rule is all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, again, study after study from economists over decades have
I've read that more with regards to events and again who it helps. When we were talking about enticing the World Cup and the Olympics, those studies all came up as well. And to me, what I read in those studies was more. I think it's an immediate benefit, not a broad benefit.
I think you're though thinking of it, Blake, in terms of do I go out for other entertainment options? And it's not simply that, right? It's okay. Well, let's use the example of a Caps fan and only a Caps fan. Let's say the day comes we're all dreading and the Whitecaps move to Las Vegas. Okay, I'm a Whitecaps fan. I'm no longer spending my money on the Whitecaps. Mm-hmm. Am I going to go out to football or hockey? No, it doesn't really interest me. But I may go down to the street and buy a really big television.
Right. Yeah.
So it's that sort of spending that you also have to understand and include in the calculus, and this is why the economists do it and not the sports leagues, because of course the sports leagues are biased and they're going to tell you, yeah, of course, we're responsible for all
I'm
this.
glad you used that example because I was going to bring an example like that just up. Mm-hmm. And the reason, Matt, then why the sports franchise is important is it builds community.
Oh, there is no doubt about that.
There's not.
No doubt about that.
That does.
We have, and that is something, Blake, that we have long talked about on this show. The best thing about a professional sports franchise is it brings otherwise disparate citizens together under a common banner of community pride. Whether that's Canucks or Whitecaps or Lions or whatever this baseball team will be called. Mm-hmm. There is no question it knits the community and the spirit together in meaningful ways.
So even
that's
if
a separate argument than the economic argument we just had, but there is no doubt these professional sports franchises bring value to the community and get us knowing our neighbors a little bit and hopefully regarding our neighbors a little bit more when we talk about, real life policy stuff that affects people's bottom lines a little bit more than who do you cheer for.
So even if you do buy those studies that it's a finite amount of money that's being spent, if you're taking it away from something that isn't community building and putting it in, then that's a positive and worthwhile.
I would agree. Now, the other, and it gets cited from time to time, but again, I just want to prep everyone for what's coming down the road. Sports franchises employ comparatively few people compared to other industries. Like there's a pulp mill closing in Prince George. I believe 300 people are losing their jobs. There are more jobs affected in that pulp mill than by any professional sports franchise in this province. The lumber giant, Interfor, it was reported this week that they're moving the headquarters to Georgia and out of Vancouver. I would suspect that affects more people from a economic and jobs point of view than any sports franchise could muster. There's 4,000 employees at that company. Sports franchise, you run a couple hundred employees usually. So, look, all of this is coming down the pipeline. I'm sure we're going to have those debates. I'm sure there will be politicians or people on the side of sports teams who are going to present all of this to you. And we used Carm's tweet. And again, we're going to have Carm on the show next week and chit-chat more about it. And he's talking about the hospitality and tourism sectors. And yeah, those are really big sectors in Vancouver and British Columbia. They employ a lot of people. We live in this absolutely gorgeous city, this West Coast Shangri-La that people want to come and visit. This would be another reason for people to come and visit. Not sure they're coming in April, when I sure hope we have a retractable roof for the baseball stadium.
The thing. If it's retractable roof, it doesn't matter. And I would guess it does have a retractable roof.
It might just be baseball is something they do when they're in town for broader reasons. Like I'm on a cruise ship that's docking in Vancouver. What am I going to do tonight? Oh, there's a Major League Baseball game.
And you can save money by doing a T-Mobile sort of setup where it doesn't have to be an enclosed dome. It could just be a roofed stadium. Right. You haven't answered the question, though.
I am answering the question saying, no, I am still not there. I'm still not there because the two most important things in any pro sports franchise, the owner and the stadium. We don't know the owner. We don't know the stadium. So I can't get there yet in terms of do I believe? Would I like it to happen? Of course. I'm a baseball fan. I'm a sports fan. People sometimes ask me, and it's been 20 years now, is there anything you miss about living in Toronto? And I say there's two things. Number one, the ability to get up on a Saturday or Sunday morning between April and September, look outside and go, wow, what a beautiful day. I'm going to go down and watch a Major League Baseball game today. You did that countless times when I lived there. Oh, look at that. It's a sunny day. And in part because...
It generally doesn't break the bank either when you...
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah, they're cheaper
it's
tickets.
Generally the cheapest single game ticket you get in the Big Four sports. They got a lot of inventory. These are big stadiums with many, many home games. Like back in the day, we'd get $9 Blue Jays tickets.
And they want you to buy a $15 beer. That part stays the same to the other venues.
Right.
But getting in the door is usually not as bad.
So the spontaneous, what are we going to do today? Oh, man, let's be outside. There's a baseball. You see it at the Net. It's the best patio in Vancouver. People love it. It's a live action patio. You get to watch a baseball game while enjoying the outside.
I am also a no. And it is for much of the same reason. And really, I'm a little disheartened because we're going to get to another story in just a second here about stuff that may happen, could happen, they want it to happen, but that's about it. The Whitecaps facility, stadium future, up in the air, no concrete news, pardon the pun. I'm a person that is sort of needing some news, actual freaking news. When you've got something to tell me, I'm done with letters and intentions and opinions and feelings.
That's how this process works, Blake.
I know, but I feel like
Rob Manfred's not going to come out tomorrow and say, "Oh, look, Zach Ross and the city of Vancouver, you get a team."
My point is, from my own constitution and do I believe it's going to happen? Am I excited? No. There is nothing leading me to believe that there's any there. When there's something there, I will have belief. Right now, the answer is no.
I will tell you this. I am also most interested in the conversations that took place on Blue Jays Way and at T-Mobile Park yesterday when this news dropped, because both of them, I think, the Blue Jays and the Mariners feel like Southern BC and Vancouver is their territory, right? That we draw people from that community. And, of course, it's a pretty big community to have as a satellite. And, of course, the Blue Jays model is we are Canada's team with a market from St. John's to Tofino. And the Mariners know that they've got a very large city here that works as an adjacent satellite for their ball games with tons of Mariners fans over the years. Are they willing to share? Because here's the thing. When you buy a sports team, you don't buy the logo. You don't buy the name. That's owned centrally by the league offices. You buy the license to operate, in this case Major League Baseball, in a given territory, which would be the city of Vancouver, the Lower Mainland, Vancouver Island. We'll see where they draw the lines. But as we've talked about since this story started, partner, there's an argument to be made. Major League Baseball, you've already got Vancouver, except they're Jays fans, they're Mariners fans. They watch a lot of games on television, and they go to a number of games in Seattle. We'll see where that goes.
I think
see if Rogers is willing to share Canada as it
that's the bigger one for me.
Once did in its early days of owning the Blue Jays when the Expos were still
And we
around.
need to know what Major League Baseball has committed to the Jays in that regard as to like what is actually written down as their market, because there may be compensation needed there. The Mariners, they are 4-hour drive. They are across an international border. I don't think they've got a case, but the Jays, they may have like a legal case. It may be written down somewhere. For God's sake.
Here's what I will say, going back to Steve Ewan's point about can you tell a better story? If your owners are incredibly well-heeled, like there is no question that these people can afford it, and Major League Baseball believes in your stadium plan, and especially if it's at that Canby site looking out on the city and the mountains, I think the only hang up there is Canada and the Canadian dollar, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no doubt that presents better than each and every one of these cities, Nashville, Portland, Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City's pretty.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Portland's got its charms. But, Vancouver, you're going to an international destination. a city that's hosted World Cup games, World's Fair, Olympics.
And they want more wallets. And I believe Vancouver metro area would have more wallets than both Salt Lake and Portland.
Very wealthy people here. Alas, it is with a dollar that is down and continues to plummet if you believe in the forecasters who look at currency.
And the corporate money thing is an interesting caveat here, folks, too, because for the Whitecaps in that league, corporate money, like local-ish corporate money, is even national money, is harder to come by here in Vancouver. The difference, I would say,
very much harder to come by
for baseball, because of the exposure and the visibility to an international and a U.S. audience. Hell, you could have a stadium sponsor that isn't even a Canadian product.
Oh, no. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like you could have people coming out of the woodwork because of the international exposure they know that will be on that stadium.
Yeah.
Different market.
And if you spent any time on baseball Twitter, you've probably heard of the 999 challenge, 9 innings, 9 hot dogs, 9 beers. Blake's going to try this at the Nat tonight. Now, we're not saying you have to complete it, but we are saying you can really look good while you try. And we've teamed up with the Nation Network to launch the Perfect 9 Collection, a limited edition lineup inspired by one of baseball's most legendary game day traditions. This isn't your average merch either. Premium fabrics, modern fits, gear you'll actually wear long after baseball season ends, whether you're heading to a ballpark, catching a game on the patio, or just want everyone to know you're a serious student of baseball culture. The Perfect 9 Collection has you covered. It's only available for a limited time, so grab yours before it's gone at nationgear.ca. And if you do attempt the challenge, well, we expect a full scouting report afterwards. Maybe a friend can take video. Vote on the poll, the S&P, X, and YouTube channels. I mean, that's a big enough story as it stands today.
Yes.
But we have a bigger one in Canucks world. An extraordinary 24-hour period of a potential reordering of Vancouver's professional sports facilities and landscape, or at the very least, at long last, the Canucks are getting a practice facility, right, Blake? Right,
they might.
Blake?
So this news dropped today, and I texted you without reading the MOU, without reading the press release. I texted you because he was out of the studio for a moment, and I said, Matt, Canucks Practice Facility announced. Then I clicked, and what I found inside was everything we already knew about the Canucks' chances and wants to get a practice facility. What they released today was news that they've entered a memorandum of understanding, or in layman's terms, they've decided to have formal discussions with the powers that be about the possibility of maybe building a practice facility within and adjacent to the Britannia ice rink.
You know, at Easter, when you get those chocolate eggs, and some of them are completely filled in, it's like a solid block of chocolate in an egg form, and the other ones are hollow with a like itty-bitty, dinky little toy or something, trinket in there.
Yes.
This is the latter.
And it's a pretty disappointing toy.
The City of Vancouver and Canucks Sports Entertainment have signed an MOU to explore a new hockey development facility with community amenities at the Britannia Community Services site adjacent to the existing Britannia rink. So, the practice facility would be built adjacent to the rink.
This is open to a lot of interpretation.
This is why we bring it up.
Because they're probably knocking down that rink. So don't think, 2 rinks.
Well, or are they just using that rink and then building something
who's to say?
Tricked out.
Very vague, very undetailed.
The important thing here, this is not a done deal. It's still only an MOU. Reminder, the Caps have an MOU with the city for development of the Hastings site.
Yeah, and what's that worth? Like most people do not think it's going there. So it's
there's no mention of 1 sheet, 2 sheets, anything, additional sheets. And then the other thing, when you read through the release, the Canucks seem to speak of this in more definitive terms than Mayor Ken Sim, and probably for good political reason. The Canucks really want this to be done and this story to go away. So the release says the MOU represents a significant step toward long-term investment in the Britannia neighborhood and explores the potential to bring together a dedicated training facility for the Canucks with the new community amenities designed to support opportunities for residents, youth, athletes, and families. So good. That's got a community element. Through an exclusive negotiating period, the city and Canucks Sports and Entertainment will work collaboratively to explore terms. Oh, when I hear explore terms, because in the past, the Canucks terms have been, well, we're not spending any money. You just get to put our name on your facility, and you get the shine of being associated with the Vancouver Canucks. So the exploring the terms phrase, key. For a potential ground lease for the new facility, the use of Britannia Ice Rink. You see, it says the use of Britannia Ice Rink, Blake, by the Canucks and other financial terms and community benefits. Mayor Sim, quote, "We're at the beginning of an important conversation about what is possible for Britannia." And he goes on to say, exploring opportunities together, taking a thoughtful approach to understand how investment in sports infrastructure can also expand access to amenities, programming, and opportunities. An important first step. He calls it we're at the beginning
of the conversation.
Right.
Not of building. Like most people think, we're at the beginning. The first spade is in the ground.
Then there's Michael Doyle, Canucks president. This partnership with our city represents a long-term investment in our community and in the future of hockey in Vancouver.
Maybe.
He goes on to say we are
it.
committed to working with the community to explore opportunities for youth, families, future generations connected through sports. Daniel Sedin, Canucks co-president. A dedicated practice facility is an important step forward for our organization and our players. But working with the city to have this initiative deliver new amenities for the community makes this extra special. And he goes on to talk about another important piece in building the foundation and the culture and the standards that are going to position the Vancouver Canucks for long-term success. So anyways, even in the way that the Canucks personnel were quoted in this release versus Ken Sim, you see a little bit of a... Now, in one sense, I'll applaud the Canucks because they've always tried to be the ones with the leverage and the ones making the winning deal, right? It's got to benefit us. Oh, and if it happens to benefit you, great. But we got to be the winners. If I read between the lines here, at least the Canucks are acknowledging here that the city has some leverage, right? And hopefully that means they're finally willing to buck up to make this happen.
Which is why the skepticism may remain here. The Canucks have not been team players, if you will.
No.
They do not like to play with others. That was available to them across the street. Mm-hmm. Across the street at the Plaza of Nations. The derelict buildings of the Plaza of Nations remain. There was, and I would guess still is, theoretical opportunity to be partners with somebody there. That's gone the way of the dodo.
Yeah.
And now they're going to try to be partners with the city. But here's the thing. The city, they owe their attention to the taxpayer, not to the Canucks. To go into with a private partnership, at least you're both trying to make money out of it, and there's sort of a common goal. There's a little bit of tension between the MOs of the two partners here. So, again, believe it when we see it.
Yeah. What I'm really hoping here, Blake, is that the Canucks, and when I say Canucks, I mean Francesco Aquilini and Michael Doyle, have recognized and eaten some humble pie on this file and others. We heard their new hockey chiefs talking about how they've got to do a better job in community. They got to do better with media and fan relations, like the important stuff that involves treating people like people and not ATMs, being good neighbors, being leaders on charitable and philanthropic initiatives in the community. I really hope that has now resonated with Doyle and Aquilini, that they understand that all the losing the team has done has brought that into focus for them. Because when the Canucks were riding high, and Doyle wasn't there, but Aquilini sure was, And they had long wait lists of season ticket holders, and they were selling merch left, right, and center. And they were the talk of the town and the biggest event and just the apple of this city's eye. Look, it's only natural, right? Human nature. The confidence, the arrogance, the lack of
Lots
humility.
of
You're pretty big for your bridges. All that stuff sets in.
And
that, unfortunately, was the culture even as they went into a lean period and just didn't seem acutely aware of how they were perceived on the ground by the citizens of Vancouver.
And if I'm Michael Doyle, I am pretty nervous about this file because there's going to have to be a fall guy if this falls through. And he is the president.
It's no longer Jim Rutherford, right?
It is president of business operations.
That's right.
This is your file, Michael Doyle.
That's right.
This should be his ass on the line.
That's right. This is no longer in the purview and the hands of your hockey boss. This is your business chief that has to get this done.
You are the only team in the NHL that won't have a practice facility as of about 12 months from now.
That's right. The Flames are building one. So, as Daniel has noted, and media in this town has been noting for a long time now, the Canucks need this for their players. I mean, when Gillis was here, he was talking about being the best in class, right? We're a long way from best in class, but to get back up the ladder to keep up with the Joneses, but also for franchise value. The Athletic says the Canucks are now just the 18th most valuable franchise in the NHL. They used to be top 5, top 10 with a bullet. Worth $1.87 billion. The Canucks have experienced the least growth on franchise value of any team in the National Hockey League over the last 15 plus years, according to the sports business publications that do these franchise assessments.
Yep. The business side of things.
Canucks used to be right up there with the Bruins and Kings. Now, some of these teams built arenas, which inflated their value.
Sure does.
Connor McDavid landed in the lap of the Oilers, who also built a new facility, so that's why you see them up there at 6. They will not be at 6 when Connor McDavid isn't there anymore. But the Blackhawks, the Flyers, those should very much be comparables to the Canucks. They used to be a high-revenue economic might franchise in this league. They are not that anymore. As Sapster notes, the Canucks dropped 5 spots this year on this file from 13th to 15th.
And this is after in-building renovations.
I mean, they're behind some Southeast American teams, Blake. You and I are old enough to, we were thinking, are they going to make it in South Florida? Are they going to make it in Raleigh? Well, they've won cups, and they're making it better on the ice than the Vancouver Canucks. And now you've got people assessing the value saying, no, they're even more valuable than the Canucks, despite having fewer hockey fans for a much shorter period of time in their market.
So let me ask you this, though. It's a central location. And hey, we are, I think, in lockstep, everybody watching and the two of us. Vancouver's a tough place to build things. We talked about this with regards to the Major League Baseball stadium and the Whitecaps, too. But this is the smallest of the 3 venues that we're talking about, a soccer stadium, a baseball stadium, and a private. It is the smallest.
Yeah. Oh, by far.
But do you, and let's face it, this is settling. This is not the ideal scenario here for the Canucks.
Well, Blake, the way this works with other franchises is they go out in the suburbs, buy land, and then build this thing from scratch.
And build up palace. And build up palace.
With no partners. They just do it on their own as the cost of business.
Yeah. And they build a palace.
They don't partner with a decades-old rink.
And this cannot be a palace because of height restrictions and the footprint of the block. So
I will say this, there's some very good eating.
There is. Yeah, the post-practice lunches are going to go through the roof here for the Canucks.
There's so much great eating there.
But is this the droid they're looking for?
Well, look, it's the best.
Yeah, I know. I know the sentence you're saying, but do you settle for this?
These are not Jedi. These are Padawans. So I've been thinking about it, Blake, because you've got some teams that are onto a second practice facility that have said, you know what, our existing practice facility isn't big enough.
The Golden Knights are onto they barely have existed.
It's 10 years old. As a temporary measure, I can't believe I'm talking about this in the same terms we're talking about BC Place as a Whitecaps home. As a temporary measure, we got to get something done now facility, sure. I am interested by the possibility of the Jericho lands one day.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is going to be a place in the city one day that gets developed beyond what it is now.
And Francesco Aquilini has partnered with First Nations before,
right.
So that would fit.
I am wondering about the Jericho lands.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me, the ones that's about Shaughnessy Golf Course when the lease is up. Like, what's going to happen there? Because that's another First Nations partnership possibility. Yeah. I talked to a member recently who said, I think they're just going to run it as a public golf course, which is really cool.
Imagine.
Blake and I will be playing Shaughnessy a lot and shooting really high scores if that ever happens.
The fairways will get wider.
But, I mean, you said it, Blake. The obvious spot is across the street. And Concord Pacific continues to do the city wrong by just leaving that open. Like, I drove visitors by there. They're like, what's going on here? I'm like, nothing. Sweet fucking nothing. They go, what do you mean nothing? I'm like, well, there's a really big, rich company that just parked their money there and is waiting for someone to do a sweetheart deal where they make even more money to develop that land, or they're just going to sit on it and sell it for more than what they paid.
But it's been 40 years of waiting for that to happen.
And I'm like, that used to be a casino, that used to be a spot of some social activity. Now it's just kind of parking lots for BC Place and the rink. I tell you, I've said it before, like Concord Pacific, between what they're not doing on that site and what they're not doing with the old Molson plant at the foot of Burrard Bridge, they are making a hell of a case for eminent domain, where the government comes in and just says, we're taking your land unless you're going to do something with it.
Yeah, it never has.
It's waterfront land in the city of Vancouver. Like, it should be a public community asset that people are able to enjoy. If you're making money off it, great, but do something to allow residents of this city to enjoy it.
Never has doing nothing seemed so criminal. But when it gets to this point, it does.
So ultimately, I would like to think this may take a new owner, because I think, they've lost that file once. They wouldn't want to go crawling back, the Aquilinis, to the Concord
Right, then you
Pacific.
lose all your leverage, yes.
But what I'm hopeful for is they sell the team, which, apart from practice facility, would be beneficial, I think.
Yes.
And that a new owner goes, what do you mean? We can build it right there.
Yeah. Happen.
Yeah.
Yellow Dog?
Please.
Had one last night. It was that kind of a night. Barbecue, chicken, potatoes, barbecued corn. Oh, so very good. And you need beers to go along with it. So may I recommend the High Five Hazy IPA from Yellow Dog Brewing. 473 ml 4-packs. They are on special for the month of August. That month starts on Saturday. Go look for the High Five Hazy IPA. It's hoppy, it's fruity, it's delicious. Look for it on sale at your private and government liquor stores.
Ryan Johnson, with perhaps his strongest comments since taking over as general manager of the Vancouver Canucks, he is pushing back, and he is pushing back in a big way on reports about the Vancouver Canucks cutting budget. Quote to the province and Ben Kuzma, I can assure you we've made no mandate about money or to shed salaries. The support is there, and they brought me in with a vision for what's right in the short and long term. And there's an understanding to give yourselves flexibility. You can't sit at the floor of the salary cap. To think about shedding is completely fabricated. The message has been, we're excited, and there will be some hard decisions along the way, but that's what is going to entail, and we know that. This is quite a clapback, because, of course, it was Patrick Johnson in the same newspaper not long ago that reported the Canucks are looking to get out of salary, not retaining on Elias Pettersson, want to move the whole ticket, want to move DeBrusk. are already down. Is it 8 million? Looking to be down 12 more, or down 12, looking to be down 8 more. One of those two.
Mm-hmm.
So that is quite a strong statement from Ryan Johnson. I don't know if you want to parse it and say devil's in the details.
Well, he's got to say it. I mean, and really, there's no way of proving what your motivations are. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, we do know what they're going to spend on players.
Yeah.
You know,
but do they
the other internal costs are not something we see in a private business, but we certainly know what they spend on players.
No, but we don't know if there's been a mandate unless we see a leaked email of you guys got to get rid of this money. I mean,
but we see their actions,
right? But that just looks like a rebuilding team. Why would you spend
fair.
to the cap when you're rebuilding?
No, that's fair.
Rather than we need to save money. Yeah. Oh my God!
I also wonder if he's this strong, if this time has been chosen, and he's this strong because the ticket selling business hasn't gone great, and they want to kick that in the ass. No, we're not cutting budgets. Johnson went on to say it's not about wins and losses. We know that. Hey, good honesty there. We all understand that.
Mm-hmm.
We want to see growth within our structure and compete, and if those things are there and consistent along with practice habits and the way we operate and even walk into the facility, we're bound to see improvement. Boy, the one thing I'll say, when he talks about reporting to work, I hope there's nobody sort of slinking into Rogers Arena looking a little disheveled like they, had a night last night. Ryan Johnson seems to be, he's going to be like hallway monitor on this stuff. He talks about body language and even the way we walk into the facility, Blake.
Like that's got a seed somewhere, right? Like there's a beginning.
Oh, no question.
He's got a vision in his mind when he says that.
Yeah. Well, like he played for some franchises that weren't the biggest winners, right? So he probably looked around, kept the book. Yeah. Thatcher Demko, there's kind of news because there's no news, and it's disappointing. So he had his season-ending hip surgery in January, late January. And as we've talked about with Kevin Woodley a couple weeks ago, reports are pretty good for Thatcher. Like, we know he's up playing golf, swinging a golf club. That's great.
On
ice.
Yeah.
That's great. Johnson said it wasn't fair to project a return timeline. I mean, we're 6 months here, and we got 2 months before the season starts. 8 months. Okay, he's not ready for the start of the year. Okay. Surely you have some idea of when. Now, this could well be a peculiarity that they don't want to say anything about Thatcher because, of course, Thatcher has seemed quite sensitive to everything regarding these injuries and return timelines in the past. So they might just be playing ball and saying, look, we're not going to put any pressure on Demko. We're not going to talk any timeline. Thatcher's going to let us know when he's feeling better. But for those of you who are sitting there worrying, oh, my God, if Thatcher Demko is back and on form, that could really scuttle the rebuild. We'll win too many games. We'll accumulate too many points, and then we'll be back in the mushy middle. Well, I guess that's good news that there's no return timeline for Demko.
I think this is a mature enough market, and this is probably Ryan just being new to the seat, too, or he doesn't want to speak out of line. I mean, the vast majority of people consuming the quote, I think, would be able to handle if he said, listen, this is not official by any stretch of the imagination. But if he was back by December 1st, we'd certainly be happy to see that. You know, it's not legally binding. No one's going to, no one's going to, I think, take him to task if that is off by a few weeks on either side.
Think,
Are people not mature enough in this day and age to handle that kind of a quote?
No, but like, Thatcher lost his shit when people knew it was his popliteus.
Yeah.
So, like, he's been precious as a pincushion on this stuff. I think he's just playing ball with the player.
Maybe.
Jonathan Lecker-Mackey, who was shut down with that right shoulder injury and underwent a big surgery, repair torn labrum and rotator cuff damage. Kuzma reports it could affect the velocity and accuracy of his shot, and he is a right shooter. But he's on track to be ready in September, Johnson told Kuzma. So that's good because, like, this is, as we talked about earlier last week, this is a really big season for Jonathan Lecker-Mackey, a one-time first-round pick. Kind of make or break. So hope he is healthy and good to go from the jump. Prospecting. Canucks prospect Braden Cootes wearing the C for Team Canada at the World Junior Summer Showcase. They played Sweden last night. There's some video Mark Masters of TSN provided of Mr. Cootes in warm-up wearing that number 7. What a gorgeous sweater, huh, Blake?
Great socks, too. The Canadian
I
socks.
love the fit last night for Canada was beautiful. I love the big letters. I love the big maple leaf. I like the red and white. No complications of a third color mixed in there on the palette. Sure, we're the black, trim elsewhere, but I love the red and white.
Now, they lost 5-3, and no points for Cootes or Malhotra. But didn't play poor, per se.
No. News from Ben Lipka out in Abbotsford about the baby Canucks, where he says, look for the Abbotsford Canucks to add longtime Moose Jaw Warriors head coach Mark O'Leary to the coaching staff. Of course, a new coaching staff with Manny Malhotra having been promoted. O'Leary has been coaching the Moose Jaw Warriors since 2019-2020. He was an assistant with Moose Jaw going back to 2012, 2013. Shoot, he's old enough that he coached Morgan with the Moose Jaw Warriors all those years ago.
And you might say, I've never heard of the guy. And that's fair. But he won a WHL title in 2024, coached Canada's U18. So, again, this is sort of the to and fro of, I've never heard of that guy, but he's actually done some things, and we've sort of had that from a couple of the hires for the Canucks, Ryan Papianu as well. And you're just like, who is that guy? Oh, he's got a great resume.
Yeah.
I mean,
his first year in Moose Jaw was Morgan Riley's last year there in Moose Jaw before he became the 5th overall pick to the Leafs in 2012 from West Vancouver.
I have no doubt that these guys do come a little bit cheaper because they're not the burning up the headlines with rumored moves. But again, if you've been there and done that and have a decent resume, should carry the day.
Really good resume, and that's a guy who's been a head coach. I got to say, I've been quite impressed, especially given budget constraints, if there are budget constraints, of some of the resumes and some of the plaudits that these new hires have gotten throughout the organization.
And I said this a couple
Still think they need more, but it's a multi-year project. We've got to learn to keep patience, both in terms of roster players and who's moving out when you liquidate for young assets, but also in terms of the building of the organ.
Price tag is not equal to quality, right?
Correct.
So, look at Mike Babcock in Edmonton.
And news from the Vancouver Golden Eyes to the PWHL. How about Coach Kara? Kara Gardner-Morey, who has served as the team's general manager, is, moving down to the bench. She will be the head coach going forward. The search begins for a new general manager. Now, typically, I would say, Kara, that's not great for job security to demote yourself and then have a new boss come on in.
And more directly, a job that is wins and loss related
Right.
versus yours. But
we had the conversation with her, and she talked about the expansion draft and losing players. And if you'll remember, she seemed quite anxious about it. And then there's her coaching resume.
She's a coach.
Which is superb.
She is a coach.
Yeah. By trade, she's a coach. She coached at Princeton University. And I'm just glad she's staying in the organization.
Yeah, she seems like a good fit.
And the team they built last year, people had a lot higher expectations for it than what it performed on the ice.
Yeah.
It finally started scoring goals later in the season, but people looked at the talent that she accumulated and said, that could be a really good team in year one. Didn't quite get there, but showed signs late in the season. And of course, now they have KK.
Yes.
How many
the next superstar?
How many coaches would love to build their own roster first?
That's a great point, Mike.
Yeah, I guess you can't complain too much about the players.
My players
in
are
training.
good.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're your players, Kara.
And I did have to think that and I thought this almost from the get-go, really, I'm surprised with her resume that she's not just got both hats. But,
Might be too big a job.
Might be too big a job.
Yeah. And if you don't know Caroline KK Harvey, the first overall pick in the PWHL draft out of Wisconsin, I mean, I say become a super. She is already a superstar in women's hockey. At the international and the NCAA level, there are some people who believe she could be the best player in the history of the sport, or at the very least, the best defender in the history of the sport. And we had her on the show shortly after selection, and she was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to experience Vancouver and all it had to offer, and I think she is going to be amazing for them in terms of selling the game and selling the team and selling tickets.
And she's already done that at the Olympics. Like, you've already seen her at this level of competition, basically, and she ripped it up. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and in a word, dominant.
Yes.
So you're going to get a chance at the Pacific Coliseum to go and watch arguably the best player in the sport as a rookie.
It's possible, yeah.
And if not as a rookie, in relatively short order.
Yeah. Next year, year after, she might be. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, think of it. She's the Connor McDavid of the women's game.
Yeah.
The Shea Gilgeous-Alexander of the women's game.
And
the Shohei Ohtani of the women's game.
And if you're wondering how that translates in women's hockey, I can tell you, and it's, every year that goes by with MPP, it slips a little bit more. But there's still jaw-dropping plays made by Marie-Philippe Poulin. And so if you're getting that a youthful player with health on her side, she could be wowing Vancouver crowds.
Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by our friends at Greta. A great place to pregame or postgame. You were mere steps from the arena or the stadium. And I've been in touch with Josh there at Greta, and oh my goodness, do they have some delicious offerings that are coming up. If you've got a fantasy football league and you are looking for a place to conduct your draft, we're going to get into the details next week. But needless to say, Greta is going to have you fully equipped and provide a memorable day to go on out and draft your fantasy football teams in advance of the season in September. Details next week, but we've been telling you about Greta, fantastic spot for a private party like a fantasy football draft. A private riser at the back. You got a full-service bar there. You got screens that surround you. The approachable and delicious menu of street food. The smash burgers, absolutely terrific. And then there's the arcade. Because whether it's a family reunion, a team party, an office outing, everybody's going to have fun at the arcade. We promise you that. For more information to book your event, go to gretabar.com, Greta 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. Harman Dayal's going to join us here from the Athletic Canucks Conversation. Harm has not only got a very successful YouTube channel now. He's done great work there. But we're going to talk about Elias Pettersson and his go forward here with the Vancouver Canucks. We're going to talk about the practice facility and other Canucks matters. Jeff Marek is going to join us. We're going to talk about that fun story that we discussed yesterday. Is there a world where Bedard-Celebrini and Connor Bedard both come home? That we see NBA-style super teams architected by these two North Van superstars? We're going to talk about hockey distribution and hockey as culture or hockey as habit in a new world where no more Hockey Night in Canada. Sportsnet Plus is getting more expensive. To watch all Stanley Cup playoffs next year, you're going to need a streaming service, Amazon Prime. Good discussion coming up with Jeff, who thinks it is really, really important for a Canadian team to win a cup reasonably soon for the sport and the game standing in this country.
For the good of the game.
Well, but I love the quote, and it's Ken Dryden's line, not his, but, hockey in Canada, is it culture or is it habit? Are we doing it only because it's habitual, or is it passion or is it habit? Or are we doing it because we really, really, really love it? Because you've never had more competition for eyeballs, for ears, for interest as you have in today's world. Later in the program, we're going to talk about this BC Place Stadium story. Mr. Ravi Kalon yesterday speaks on it again, but the messaging's getting a little bit mixed here from Ravi and from the government of British Columbia. And I can understand why some of you, including Lions fans, are going, wait a second, they'll sell it to the Caps, but not to our owner? Our owner, who everybody knows, who's front and center and buying this team and providing for this team? Not a team that isn't for sale?
That hasn't been said, but it could be interpreted that way.
Well, yeah, because of, for the most part, mixed messaging here over the last week on BC Place. We're going to talk about the Caps, who, of course, have the big one Saturday against LAFC. 35,000 tickets already sold for this one against the Korean legend Sonny. There is a coup d'etat happening at FIFA. Like, there is a lot of drama at FIFA in the weeks after the World Cup.
CONCACAF just jumped into the boat on that, too.
I know. Lions got a big one here tonight in Winnipeg. The debut of Caden Salter as starting quarterback. And baseball trade deadline, everybody is linking the Blue Jays and Phillies together, saying there are deals to be made. So a huge, huge program coming up today. It is time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. We both like the Lions plus 7.5 tonight. We both like the under on that game. At last check, 53.5, or is it 54? Anyway, still like the under on the football game tonight, 53.5. Where are you going?
Yeah, it was 54.5 yesterday. That's why
so it's gone down a point.
That's why you act. I'm going Mariners. Sasaki versus Wu. And Brian Wu's been playing very well of late. Plus, get a little bit of action on the Mariners here on the road, taking on the Dodgers. It's not an easy place to play. But plus 135 for a Mariners victory down at Chavez Ravine.
I sure hope the Mariners don't screw it up from here. Like, we know the Blue Jays aren't going to be in the playoffs, or we certainly strongly suspect that. I do want one of the two teams of local interest in the postseason. That Mariners rotation is too darn good to be left out of the playoffs. They could beat anybody.
Well, two of the three teams will make the playoffs, right? Like, of the Rangers, Astros, and Mariners, two of them are making the playoffs.
Well, let it be Seattle. Come on.
Yeah.
Whitecaps are a minus 120 favorite against LAFC Saturday. That's a Bet365 thinks the world of the Whitecaps these days. You were seeing some really, really short prices to take the Whitecaps to win. They were big favorites last week on the road. So not enough value there. This is a good opponent. Should be close. We've seen that. They've played some terrific playoff games that went down to the wire. So why not the draw at plus 300? Get some value in there. The worst thing about hockey season is that at some point every year it ends. There's a lot of time between now and first puck drop next season. Feels like an eternity if you're accustomed to watching nightly games. The good news, Bet365 still has plenty of options, just none that require lacing up skates. At Bet365 Casino, you can choose between hundreds of slots, live tables, and your favorite games. Well, maybe your second favorite game. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Harman Dayal coming up next. Sick Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center. We're joined now by the Athletics' Harman Dayal, of course, the co-host of Canucks Conversation, which you can watch and listen to here on the Nation Network with David Quadrelli. Harm not only joins us now, but Harm has turned into a YouTube sensation. We're seeing what you're doing with the videos on YouTube, buddy, and it seems like there's been fantastic response. So congratulations.
And apparently you're behind the technical part of it too. You're doing these editing and
He's
like
a
graphic
one-man
overlays.
Show. He's a one-man show.
I mean, we knew you were smart, but
well done.
You're creative as well.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a lot of work doing the editing side, and I'm still very far from polished on that front. But I'm just really thankful that the response has been so positive, and it's given me the momentum and the motivation to keep going with it. So super grateful for the response.
And you did one recently on Elias Pettersson, Harm, building on a big deep dive you did last offseason for The Athletic about Elias Pettersson and his struggles. And it included the nugget that even going back to the Benning administration, there were, because we heard a lot of it from Rutherford et al., but even going back to the Benning administration, there were some concerns or questions about Elias and work ethic and how he might age as an NHL player. Explain.
Yeah, so I remember that training camp, PD and Quinn were up at the same time. And if you guys recall, Quinn got the 6-year deal, PD got the 3-year extension. And at the time that the deal was signed, I assumed that that was primarily cap space related driven. Remember, this was the flat cap era. The Canucks were hindered by a bunch of inefficient contracts on the books for bottom 6 players. It was a tight squeeze. So I thought, you know what, maybe they just couldn't afford to go long on both guys because Pettersson's bridge deal carried a cap hit of 7.35. And if you would have stretched the years out, the cap hit would have had to go up as a consequence. But I remember about a month or two after the deal was signed, I ran into a high-level Canucks exec that worked on that contract. Would have been part of that decision and working with both players to come to terms on their second contracts. He was quite honest in saying that not the entire reason, but at least part of the reason that they preferred going shorter on Pettersson is because they weren't fully sold on him yet. They wanted to see more in terms of his just overall commitment to the game and personality type. And I remember at the time that struck me as quite odd because all I'd seen of the player up until that point was somebody that was obsessed with his craft, had excellent practice habits at the time. I go back to my very first training camp covering Pettersson and the way that he was just dominating in bag skates. He looked like a man on a mission. And at the time, I didn't even really take it seriously because this is before his game had obviously fallen off a cliff. Everything pointed to him being a franchise number 1 center. And yet clearly the last administration was maybe onto something there and kind of caught something behind the scenes where I don't think they were sitting there and saying definitively his work ethic is an issue. And there was no indication that they thought some kind of fall off was coming, but it was at least something in the back of their mind. The idea that, hey, we want to see a little bit more in terms of that overall commitment to becoming the best version of himself. And clearly over the last couple of years, that's become more and more of a prominent storyline as we've heard. I mean, a lot of different people in the organization, whether it's, Talkett in the past, Rutherford, and even the Sedins now, all referencing practice habits, preparation, those kinds of themes.
Yeah, we're about to hit August, and you know what happens in August, Harm? Not a lot of NHL activity. Not that there's been a lot of NHL activity, frankly, since Canada Day. But what do you think? Is Elias Pettersson start the season as a Vancouver Canuck?
I do. I think you look at the Canucks incentives in this situation, unless a team is going to step up and give you a decent package, I don't think there's a point in trading him just to get rid of the contract. Canucks already have tons of cap space. If they regained $11.6 million in cap space tomorrow, that's not moving the needle for where they're at in their rebuild. There's no opportunity cost to that. And that's something I've talked to other teams to as well as them looking at it from Vancouver's situation going, unless you've got a legit offer on the table, if the possibilities that are available to you this summer involve you're going to have to take on another team's problem contract and you're getting mediocre, like we're talking, 3rd round pick and something else. If the offers are kind of low balls, which I would expect them to kind of be given where Pettersson's game is at right now, then I think the best course of action for the Canucks is just to hold on. And understand that the inflation with the salary cap going up, that Pettersson contract, yeah, it's overpriced, but it's going to look less onerous. And I think you have to try and think about how do you maximize his value. And, one possibility I thought of is if you hypothetically held on to him for 3 years, you'd be in a position where he's still 30 years old, right? So we're not talking about a guy that's 30 today and would be in his early 30s and have presumably fallen off even further from where he is today. So still at a relatively productive age. Let's say he doesn't even bounce back, right? Let's forget that storyline, and he just is what he is as a high-end, above-average second-line center. Well, with where the cap is going to be and how difficult it is to find centers, and I mean, we just saw a guy like Trevor Zegras get over $9 million recently, then I think you're going to be at a point where, okay, there's only 3 years of term left on the contract. And if you're an acquiring team, 3 years of term left, it seems more palatable, less risky. The contract is also relatively front loaded. So you look at the salary owed in the last 3 years, it's about $21 million, give or take, which means it's something that an ownership group of another team would look at and also say, all right, we're not actually paying him $11 million per year in salary. It's only about $7.5 million per year, especially once the signing bonus is paid out. And all of a sudden it becomes a lot more of an attractive possibility. And then if you're the Canucks, it's only 3 years left at that point. I mean, first of all, I think you'd be in a position where you could get decent value from anyway. But if you wanted to juice the return further, then you could look at, do we want to retain a little bit of salary? Not because we have to, but because if we do, then the return could be that much more robust. Yeah. Whereas like retaining salary with 6 years left this offseason, like that's a tough sell for any ownership group. So with all that in mind, with all that in mind, I'm expecting, with all that in mind, I think it's far more likely than not that he returns as a Vancouver Canuck in the fall.
And I got to say, Harm, like you've been my North Star because I remember the conversation we had in April where you said, I've got to remind myself they don't have to do it all this off season. Like they have time. Patience is something that could very well benefit the Vancouver Canucks as they go through all this.
Canucks have some level of agency. A lot of it's with the player. And of course, there's not any one thing. And it's multiple things even between the years, even if you want to break it down from that. There is a commitment level issue for sure. There's also just a confidence issue, which I think is a separate issue that's between the years. There are injuries that have maybe impacted. What is the likely path forward here? If the Canucks want him to do well regardless, whether it's to help their own team, whether it is to improve the trade asset. How does it come to pass? What are the biggest solves for Pettersson to be, and I think 100-point player is down, but never mind the over-under being 60. How do you get the over-under to be 75? Because then the equation changes entirely on, whether or not he's a top-end asset.
To do that, I think one of two things would need to happen. Either his skating speed returns, which, like, that was my biggest takeaway from doing the deep dive, looking at the old clips where, like, not only some of the highlight reel goals where he's making plays off the rush, but I found a training camp video from 2021 where he's beating Quinn Hughes down the ice in one of these training camp drills, beating Quinn Hughes down the ice. And you compare that to where he's at today, and he looks very sluggish and lethargic. And I think that's taken away from how dynamic he is as a player. It's taken away from his ability to create in transition. I think it's made it harder for him to separate from defenders and get the space to shoot, right? We talk a lot about the shot volume declining. I think part of that is he's not able to get to dangerous positions on the inside as much because the acceleration and pop in his skating isn't there. That is tricky. I don't know that there's a lot that the Canucks can do there because, like, I wonder about the knee tendonitis, right? Is that something chronic that's been ailing him? And also when you watch him skate, it is interesting. Like, he's always had this wide base and he tends to lean on his inside edges a lot. And I wonder if that unorthodox skating style, just from childhood up, created a lot of stress on his joints, on his knees, and whether that technique is what led to the knee tendonitis issues. And from there, I mean, to rebuild a guy's skating stride in the middle of his career, it's very, very difficult to do. So I don't know if there's an answer or solution to that front, which I think would be the biggest lever for a bounce back. The second part would be getting him first-line caliber wingers to play with, right? Let's not forget that he was saddled with Evander Kane for large chunks of this season. Evander Kane might not even get a contract for next season. The issue with that is, how are you going to get that guy? I don't think that guy is in the pipeline right now, since their best forward prospects are centermen, and you're at the start of a rebuild. You're obviously not going to prioritize acquiring a top-line winger for Pettersson to play with. So, unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot that the team can do. Your best shot is hoping that Manny Malhotra can, like a change in voice, can somehow resonate better with him. And maybe a less extreme defensive deployment might help Juice's offensive production. Yeah. Like we all know Pettersson is still high in defensively, so I understand why Adam Foote last year, especially with all the injuries, gave Pettersson so many defensive zone starts and some of the toughest matchups in the league. But I think if you want to see him produce more offensively, then I think taking a little bit of that off his plate might do him some good.
The other sluggishness, if you will, that makes me think it's not the tendonitis, and your theory is a good one, is when he does do his dekes, and he doesn't do it often, just the quick twitch of a deke is it's not doing what it used to do. Like it seems like it's so telegraphed that all of us could reach in and poke check it away from his, and that didn't used to be the case. And that's, I think, what gets him in trouble with some fans in terms of commitment level and does he even care, is the things that he's trying to do, even the ones that replicate what he used to do, they're not done at the same speed or with the same ferocity that they used to be.
Yeah, and I do kind of wonder if part of that is, like, still goes back to the skating, right? Yeah. You're right. Watching the differences between him doing his dekes early in his career versus now, it does feel like it's at half speed and yes, very telegraphed and easy for defenders to read and kind of react to. But that shiftiness, that elusiveness, I don't think it's a hands issues. Like, I don't think he's lost the ability to stick handle. I wonder about with his feet, the shiftiness, the elusiveness, whether that's still the root cause there. And I don't have an answer or a solution for how you help him regain that part of his game.
I know. And that could be confidence too, right, gentlemen? Yeah. Like, sometimes you're on the golf course, you feel great with a certain club on your hand, and sometimes you feel lost with the same club in your hand. Let's move on, Harm. The Canucks in the city of Vancouver make an announcement today on a practice rink at Britannia. Boy, it's far from definitive, though. Like, tell me how you read that. Did you read that as, okay, great, finally some movement on a practice facility, or we're in the beginning of the conversations after all of these months? How did you interpret what we heard from the Canucks in the city today?
Yeah, it's a positive development. We all know an MOU doesn't mean it's a done deal or guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination, but we've heard whispers of Britannia and this going back months. And for me, the way I'm reading it is, I don't think the Canucks would want to announce this unless they felt relatively confident that they're going to be able to seal the deal at some point, right? You even go back to, I think it was Irf who did some of the initial reporting. The club was very quiet on that and wasn't really confirming anything. The fact that they're now choosing to go public with it makes me think that they've reached a confidence level that they're going to be able to get a deal done. Of course, it doesn't guarantee anything, but that's one thing I'm keeping in mind. Of course, there are still some questions about what will that practice facility actually look like? How many sheets of ice are they going to have? How large is the facility going to be? You look around the NHL, and especially some of the newer practice facilities that are built, like, teams use this as an opportunity to ball out. Like every amenity you could imagine. Sprawling. I don't know if you guys have seen,
yes,
like seeing the Ducks new practice facility on the road was super cool. I don't know if you guys have seen videos of the Utah Mammoth practice facility. It is immaculate. The Kraken practice facility. You're hoping that when we get more details on a practice facility, that we get that understanding that, okay, this is going to be something that's state of the art and truly breathtaking, because I think that's the standard around the NHL. And look, I get that practice facility for fans might not be the sexiest topic, or it may not seem that important, but for players, that's their kind of home base a lot of the time. And they do talk about these little amenities, and I do think it makes a difference. However, yeah, stepping back, big picture, it's a positive development. They badly need this. And I'm hopeful that this leads to some traction.
Is a mediocre practice facility better than waiting longer for the best practice facility?
I think they'd at least hit a middle ground of average, right? And so, yes, an average practice facility is better than no practice facility, no doubt about it.
Harm, I want to Canucks have slashed payroll. There's been multiple reports about how cheap they're going with these front office hires. As we know, there could very well be a situation with Paolo Aquilini and buying him out and needing to raise capital. And Ryan Johnson came out yesterday in the province and said, no, we're not slashing salaries. We're not under the financial constraints that are out there in terms of reporting and in the public discourse. What do you make of all this? I mean, proof's in the pudding. The money is coming down and they're looking to move guys. But, I know you talk to people around the league. What are people saying and what are you hearing with regards to the Vancouver Canucks and their financial situation for this coming year?
Yeah, I think their actions have shown that they're not necessarily spending big, right? The important part where they did invest kind of financially is gassing the coaching staff, which I think is important, right? They needed to let go of Adam Foote, and not just Foote, but the assistants as well. That was an important bill for ownership to Foote. But beyond that, they haven't necessarily spent a lot, right? It's not as if they've added a ton of bodies to create some kind of state-of-the-art analytics department. It's still mostly the same crew. They haven't had splashy senior exec hires the way, say, Nashville did, and going out and getting a Rob Blake to complement Chris McFarland at the top. We, of course, saw PJ Story in how the AHL head coaching staff search went, and them not being able to land their number one target initially. But in having said that, I don't think that it concerns me from the perspective of just because they haven't made the most expensive, most experienced hires that they've necessarily made bad hires, right? You hear about like Ryan Papanou, who is going to be the AHL head coach in Abbotsford. All you hear about him are glowing reviews in the hockey world. The reason you're able to presumably get him a little bit cheaper is because he's only got the 1 year of ECHL coaching experience, and before that he was with the Brooks Bandits, so doesn't have the most decorated resume, but all he's done is have success at his previous programs. Younger, up and coming, highly regarded head coach. What it means is, all right, whether there are financial constraints or not, if you're going for more inexperienced people, it just means you need to find the diamonds in the rough. You need to go younger. You need to find that next blood. And I don't think that necessarily means you're going to be left with less competent staff. It just means you're going to need to put the work in and really vet your candidates and lean on your connections to figure out who are the rising stars in the industry at various points. And so far, when I look at the hires they've made, I go, yeah, I'm on board with a lot of these hires. So yeah, I do think with their actions, they're not spending big, but I haven't seen red flags in who they're hiring that make me go, ooh, this is a Mickey Mouse operation. And I have concerns about their competence level at various departments and parts of the organization.
They're more unknown, but they do have resumes.
Yeah.
Like they have done some things.
Hey,
highly regarded.
Yes.
And of course, like, that's all nickel and dime stuff compared to player salaries, right?
Yeah,
as we've talked about, you don't need to be at the cap when you're in year one of what we suspect will be a long rebuild. Harman Dayal, you want to read him on The Athletic. You want to watch and listen to him on Canucks Conversation. You want to check out his new hot YouTube channel, which is doing numbers, baby.
Personal YouTube channel. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Harm, tonight we baseball. I will see you at the net. Looking forward to this, buddy.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Harp.
So Garrison Price from the historic Wall Center. It's time to talk to Jeff Marek, because we love talking to Jeff Marek of The Sheet each and every day on the Nation Network. How are you? You look well. I missed you last week. I was devastated to miss you last week.
That's okay. Me, Blake, and J-Pack got in trouble about Jim Rutherford rumors that somehow started on your program and turned into 24 hours of hell for me.
Did I really? What happened there? I saw people picked up on something you said or didn't say. And
I'm having a nice, casual conversation with the boys, and somehow I think the attention somehow got to the Detroit Red Wings search for a Steve Yzerman replacement. And I always try, whenever I do a hit, whenever on someone's show, I always try to keep in the back of my mind, obviously, the audience that I'm talking to. And so it's primarily a Vancouver Canucks fan program. So that's who I'm talking to. And so I think to myself, well, you know what, maybe Detroit should, or I don't even know if they would be, talking to former Vancouver Canucks president of hockey operations, Jim Rutherford. Would that make some sense? Jim was a wing once upon a time, a couple of different times. I think the second time he was there, Dennis DeJordy became the first ever NHL goalie coach, but more on that in a different program. I just sort of threw that out there as a little sort of flavor puck, hey, here's a curiosity. Because the point that I was trying to make is it's really quiet around there. It's really quiet around the Red Wings search. Names haven't really. We think a lot of the obvious candidates. I do believe that Scott White is interviewing, for example. Maybe he already has, but that's an obvious one. And so I just sort of
he's
threw
the
out there,
AGM in Dallas. We should.
Correct,
he's the AGM in Dallas who interviewed in Nashville and several other places.
Yeah, he's the sort of. Remember how for the longest time Matthew Darsh would interview everywhere and would say, okay, eventually he's going to land. Eventually, he's the new Matthew Darsh. Scott White is. And eventually he's going to land somewhere and get his own team. And so I just kind of throw it there, do you think that they would have a conversation with Jim Rutherford? And honestly, after I finished talking to Blake and J-Pat, I didn't think about it for a second. It's it's just part of a nice conversation with the fellas. Until an aggregator feed picked it up and misrepresented what I said. They positioned it I was saying that Jim Rutherford was a candidate for the position.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you normally I stay away from all of that and I don't comment. It's just okay, look, but this one was particularly sensitive and it's Detroit. And so I just I'm just going to put out there, I didn't say that. But
okay,
you know what it's like.
Let me ask you this.
Around the block. A lie runs around the block before the truth even gets his pants on to get out the front door. So that's how it went. 24 hours of my life.
I think the Canucks were happy to have him off the books. Do you think Jim will work again at his advanced age?
I don't think that he would work as anything perhaps more than a consultant. And I do believe that there is value there. I believe that there's value in what we saw with Buffalo hiring John Davidson. For the longest time after he was done with the Pittsburgh Penguins, I always thought that someone, and Buffalo would have made the most sense too. I would have thought that someone should have hired Brian Burke as a consultant, right? There's the thing that's happening now in the NHL is, you guys have remarked on a couple of different times, is general managers are getting younger and younger now, right? And that's where you can really rely on people that have had experience. They're not going to make your decisions for you, but they can advise, they can guide, they have relationships as well. They can advise you on how to handle certain situations. How do you handle phone calls with other people? How do you work people? There's a lot of value in that. And so I don't know that Rutherford ever gets hired again as a full-time general manager, probably doesn't. But as far as being an advisor, I could still see that, yes.
GMs are getting younger, so are $19 million men in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, that's right.
What do you make of the contract?
it's still a bargain. Like, I know, like, we got to get past the sticker shock here. I think we've all come to this realization. Like, let's just get past being surprised at numbers right now. But I mean, the sticker shock is stunning. But again, when you look at, percentage, it's essentially the same thing that Crosby took when he got out of his ELC, et cetera, et cetera. And it's still a bargain. It's still a bargain for Celebrini. I loved your A block yesterday, by the way, on Celebrini or Bedard getting to Vancouver. I really, really enjoyed that. But
again, not a scoop, just brainstorming.
You're
I'm
just
going with
thinking
it.
aloud,
No,
Jeff.
I'm going with it. I'm telling all the aggregators, S&P are on this thing. They're getting both. That's why they did 5s. Take it to the bank, put it in a long-term deposit. The result is guaranteed. That is Matt Sakaris and Blake Price exclusive.
They organized it on the North Van WhatsApp hockey chat. That's how it all came to pass.
That's right.
Yeah. Look, like, this is like, there are some negotiations that aren't negotiations. Like, there's no such thing as a Connor McDavid contract negotiation. Connor tells you what he wants, and you just hope that he saves you some dignity and some room to maneuver around his contract. And do you guys not get this feeling that the same thing was true of Macklin Celebrini? That this was one of those, this is a situation where Mike Greer kind of says, like, we know this is going to be a big number. And it got even bigger after the offer sheet. Hey, tell you what, is Danny Briere secretly working for the Players Association here?
Wow.
Because he's done more to raise salaries this summer than Marty Walsh and that entire crew over there with the Players Association. But I digress. That's one of those situations.
Greer said he could have asked for the max, 20.8, and we would have had to give him the max. And he left
How
$2
would you say
million
no?
on the bone to see, to build the team.
It's not a negotiation. Not a negotiation.
But here's the one crux of truth, or at least the one crux. The issue we were discussing yesterday.
I loved it.
When discussing that glorious day when Celebrini and Bedard come home, they didn't go max term. And I know that's because max term leaves some money on the table, but it also opens up delicious possibilities, right? And Jeff,
of course,
like you're familiar when Toronto and the Gary Roberts group started and started becoming a destination for NHL players in the summer. We have 3 of the last 4 first overall picks working out together. McKenna, Celebrini, Bedard in Vancouver rinks, and presumably will be for many years on here, right? And Canucks fans are really excited about that. They're really excited about the tie that these 3 players, one of whom is already a superstar, one of whom is already on his way, and then we'll see about McKenna, are the ties that they're getting to this community and to each other, because there's an NHL hockey rink a few blocks away from us here. And who knows, right?
First of all, back up to the original point. Like, this is sort of the rise of the academy model here. We haven't seen, I know I'm going to hear it now. Here we go. I'm going to get radioed on this one. And sure, there's plenty of examples, Gordie Howe, for example, Carey Price. But when you look at, like, the history of Joe Sakic is another great example. When you look at the history of superstars, like superstars like Gretzky, Lemieux, like these types of players, Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, like, they haven't generally come from out west. That is changing, and that is changing consistently. And it's not like, like Ontario has stopped producing elite players like that. And you look at the OHL, like that to me represents a sort of like the perfect hothouse for development, whether it's, population, the number of teams. It is a real great sort of breeding ground for elite level players. But the West is there now. The West is there now. And let's not forget to not just producing forwards, but also defensemen, where the West has always succeeded. So that doesn't stop. But now you're getting the elite level future superstar forwards, whether it's Bedard, whether it's Celebrini. One of the interesting, can I just jump in on one thing that I wanted to slightly push back on, as I'm really enjoying this A block from you guys yesterday. The thing about Connor Bedard is And you let me know whether you think I'm reading too much into this because it was junior hockey in its Regina. The story of Bedard has always been unwavering loyalty. Like there were many opportunities, like in his final year of junior hockey with the Regina Pats, the Kamloops Blazers were hosting the Memorial Cup. We knew Regina was a playoff team. They weren't going to go very far. They were essentially going to go as far as Connor Bedard was going to take them. And there were offers that were made by Kamloops to bring in Connor Bedard. Probably sure that the Western League would have preferred to guarantee that their marquee player was in the Memorial Cup. And every time Bedard said, I'm not going. This is my team and I'm staying. This is the team that I've always been with. That's the one. Like I understand that everybody has a point too, but based on history, the story of Bedard is loyalty.
Fair point. I would argue that we've already heard some grumbling about the lack of competitiveness of the Chicago Blackhawks, and that is and that subtext is meatier, more current, and carries more weight going forward than his junior hockey decision to stay in Regina. But it's a fair point.
He knows the WHL stint was just a moment in time.
Yeah,
so a little bit different than the
on Western Canada and specifically Vancouver, because McKenna grew up in the Yukon. There's plenty of ice there. When I first started my career, just going 25 years ago, we used to sit around a newsroom in Ottawa and say, boy, like, how come Toronto doesn't produce more players or more superstar players than it does? And we've seen Toronto now. The reason was lack of rinks, Jeff. Like, I used to live in Toronto, and I used to go around, on the subway line and walk around downtown. I'd be like, I cannot believe how shitty these rinks are.
There's a lot of them. Yeah.
Well, there's more now. There's better now. Yeah.
There's a lot of Canlan Ice Sports, and I believe they're Alberta based.
That's right.
The Canlan Ice Sports phenomenon is massive in Ontario.
Like the Leafs used to practice at Lakeshore Lions Arena, Blake. Like that's how few sort of.
I say beer league there.
Well, no, exactly. Like, honestly, there'd be guys getting ready for their beer league game at noon with the Leafs in the room next door. It's unbelievable.
Canucks used to practice at Britannia.
Yeah, no.
Which is condemned almost now.
No, but here's the thing, Jeff. Because of climate, like people tell me they used to skate out on Lost Lagoon and Stanley Park. It is inconceivable to me that you could skate on Lost Lagoon as a 20-year Vancouver resident. Southern BC had to get into the rinks game sooner than other parts of the country because the climate, because those opportunities to skate outside were getting fewer and farther between. When I first moved out here, I could not believe the facilities for youth and amateur sport. Like, and I'm someone who's familiar with Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa. I was like, I cannot believe how good these kids have it. 8 rinks. Are you kidding me? A building with 8 separate sheets? Like, this was mind-blowing to me coming from Ontario. Southern BC did a hell of a job in getting skating opportunities for these kids decades ago, and now you're seeing the fruits of that.
But the thing is, too, like, if you go across Canada, and it's for a separate conversation here, and I don't think we're going to get it, but nonetheless, it's almost as if, like, this country needs another centennial project like it had in 1967. Where there was the movement to build, and that's why you have so many centennial arenas all over Canada, the movement to build rinks across the country as a way to help unite the country through hockey. Financially, that is going to be a nightmare. And anytime you involve, sports and taxpayers, and you would need big business involved at the same time too. But there's still a massive need for rinks. And a lot of it is because, you need to accommodate more girls and women that are playing now, more so than ever. And the rinks are not able to accommodate. And when the number one, one of the issues with how expensive hockey is, I know we always talk about equipment, and that's legit, but ice time is so expensive, and that's because it's scarce. Like, until you address the scarcity issue, it's always gonna be expensive.
Beer leagues have become so organized and thorough as well. Before, you used to just get guys together if you were 50 and you wanted to play hockey. Now there's actual full-blown leagues, so they take up ice time too.
I grew up where our beer league was on an outside sheet in Carp, Ontario. We would several days a week go and skate outdoors at a sheet in a rural little community and have beers afterwards. Like, But
Swansea
guess
Arena.
what? Guess what? You're not guaranteed those skating days anymore in that same community
No.
because of the way that the climate has changed. Like, it was inconceivable to me as a school kid growing up in Ottawa that our annual trip to the Rideau Canal as a class to skate could be canceled because the ice was not good enough in the dead of February.
I'll tell
There
you
are now fewer and fewer outdoor skating days on that canal than ever
One
before.
of the things that I always find entertaining or actually funny is when the Winter Classic rolls around or Stadium Series rolls around and they ask younger kids like their experiences of playing outdoors, and they kind of look at you sideways like,
Yeah.
yeah, my
Zero is
neighbor
the
had
experience.
ODR. I shot pucks to mods.
So, you know who can skate outdoors? Braden Cootes, because he'll be in Prince Albert, potentially. Probably not. Probably in the American League. I was trying to find a segue to.
We grew up in Sherwood Park.
Yeah.
You might still be able to skate outside there in suburban Edmonton.
Yep.
Christmas Day, maybe.
They're hosting the World Juniors, and
Yeah.
It looked good last night.
They could do an
Looked really
outdoor
good.
an outdoor practice. Well, Canucks fans are excited. Cootes and Malhotra getting a look down the middle, 1-2. Is there a chance that's the way we'll see it come Christmas time? Do you think?
I wonder how much, I do wonder about Caleb Malhotra, Caleb Beanwaye here, and whether he is made available for the World Juniors, or because he'll probably end up playing at Milwaukee next year, I would imagine. But I don't put it this way. I don't think it would shock anybody if we saw both Cootes and Malhotra down the middle and other players moved over to the wing. I'll tell you what, and I know you've heard me gush about Malhotra before. He looks even better. And again, it's just one game and it's against Sweden. Like his two-way game has already taken a step as well. Like he looks fantastic right now. Like you can tell, like this guy did not go like, all right, I'm drafted, I'm taking a few weeks off, check me out in Cowboy. No, this guy got right back to it. He looks even better. Like if you're a Canucks fan, again, like you're in the business of, are the kids getting better now, and how many of these young studs can we get? Right now, look, one of the hardest positions to get, obviously, high-end centers. You're a Vancouver Canucks fan. Get pretty excited about both these guys.
That was a pretty young lineup they had last night. Couple
Coots wanted to see, which allowed too, because that's part of his game. Okay, lastly, from needing more hockey surfaces to practice the game and develop players to, well, sport does really need a lot of eyeballs on it. It is a commercial entity.
Yeah.
No more hockey night in Canada, which for guys like us matters, but perhaps not for younger generations.
Understood.
Playoff games on streaming, Jeff. Go ahead and get Amazon Prime if you want to watch all the first round series, and Sportsnet Plus for the already cable cord cutters, getting more expensive.
Yeah.
This is an interesting hat trick of sort of distribution from the NHL and its media partners coming up this season and beyond.
I can understand the anger. I can understand the frustration from hockey fans. And we think we've all read the comments underneath a lot of these stories. And I think a lot of that anger and frustration has been, articulated in a lot of other corners too. I read it, I see it. So do you guys. I think we all get it. Hockey fans, like it. To me, it's sort of, it winks at an even bigger question. Like, let me take this one step further. Every fan has their breaking point, I assume, even when it comes to hockey in Canada. Like, I think that there is an issue with the fact that a Canadian team hasn't won the Stanley Cup since '93. That Gary Bettman could go through his entire tenure as commissioner of the NHL, as the longest serving commissioner of all the major sports here, and have only awarded the Stanley Cup once in his first season in Canada. I think that's an issue. I really do. I know sometimes we take Canada for granted and we take Canadian hockey fans for granted, but I really do think that it's something that needs more than just, a casual curiosity or just like the butt of a joke for hockey fans. I think it's a serious issue for the NHL. This is still the economic driver of the National Hockey League. And from a fan's point of view, you couple the fact that a Canadian team hasn't won since 1993. And a lot of the premium athletes are choosing to go play in sunnier locations and no tax locations.
Mm-hmm.
And now their distribution model has become much more expensive. And the ways to consume the sport is much more expensive. Like at a certain point, I always wonder about this with any sport. At what point do you guys think fans just say, I can't keep doing this?
Yep.
Where's the payoff? Where's the payoff? It's getting more expensive. There are no parades. The players are Canadian and they bring the cup back to Canada. But as far as teams go, it's not there. And I'm paying what to watch this? And a lot of my, heritage institutions, Hockey Night in Canada, as you mentioned, Matt, is gone now. At what, again, like Ken Dryden would always say during the lockout of 04-05, one of the questions that he had is he said, we're going to figure out whether hockey in Canada is a passion or a hobby for fans. Because when it's gone, do you find other things to do? When it impacts fans' pocketbooks and wallets and statements at the end of the month, I just wonder, at what point do hockey fans in Canada say, I can't do this? I can't do this anymore.
It's a great question, Jeff, because, of course, for those of us who are our age, we did not have the options. And so it was a passion.
Yeah.
Younger generations, they have a lot of options when it comes to hobbies or, finding passions elsewhere, right? In a narrow-casted
we've had a
world of
Canadian team
fragmented
go to
niche interest.
We've had a Canadian team go to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. If a team won back-to-back Stanley Cups in Canada, whether it's Edmonton, whether it's Vancouver, Toronto.
Well, they've all been there except the Leafs.
Yeah, but nobody's won it. And per Jeff's point, I don't know that it's added a bump or added any loyalty for Canadian players. Does it change? What changes if one of the teams in Canada wins back-to-back cups? What changes?
He's got to go. So here's what changes.
No. This is good. No, this is good. I do. I have 5 minutes here before I got to finish up. This is really interesting.
What do you think changes in terms of fan consumption? What do you think changes in terms of player loyalty to Marcus north of the border?
I think if it's Toronto, there's going to be an element of the dog that caught the car. What do we do now? We're not how do we celebrate? I think for some markets, really, I really do think that it's true. I think that the default setting for a lot of teams in Toronto specifically, it's hard, but they're defaulted. It's kind of like the Cubs were before they won the World Series, just to get false started and to get crushed. But I do think that there would be an element, I think, from coast to coast of some type of success, because we see it every year. What's the first story that CBC does every year at the beginning of the playoffs? Canadian hockey team has not won the Stanley Cup since 1993. Why am I doing a low rent Timu Walter Cronkite here on your show? I apologize. But you know what I mean? I think there needs to be something for Canadian hockey fans to hang on to.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it really would give hockey in Canada a shot. I really think, and again, I think it's a bigger issue because right now
I think you're right. It's got to move. Yeah,
one thing about the Dryden quote, it wasn't a hobby, it was habit. Is it a passion or is it a habit?
Yeah,
Dryden's point was, are we on just been on the trolley tracks of this is what we do and how we structure our winters, watching all of this, and once it's not there,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. My dog caught the car once. It did not go well. But you're right. It's like Wile E. Coyote. What happens if he catches the Roadrunner? That's his brands, man, is failing alongside Acme. in spectacular ways. Here's what changes it, my friend.
Massive shot in the arm.
Here's what changes it. Bring the conversation full circle. Macklin and Connor come home. They win here. Every single Canadian hockey player looks at it and goes, oh my God, to win a Stanley Cup in your hometown. They build statues. Celebrini becomes premier of British Columbia one day, and the sport is lionized once again in our country and its major markets.
He's producing the next Marvel movie, this guy over here. He's got such an imagination.
Or the next Looney Tune, yes.
Because
I think some will think that.
It's a romantic story. I know that they statues and name schools after you, and I get it.
Right.
Start measuring bridges. Will the floats fit underneath here? Do we have to go a different? I understand all that. It's a one-way ticket to the Hall of Fame. I think we get all that too. I just don't know the way that the economics of the game is going right now. I think that with the talent drain to the United States, I think it makes international hockey that much more important for Canada.
It does.
More important than the Stanley Cup.
Mm-hmm.
It really does.
A Falls Creek Stanley Cup float. I never thought about that.
Well,
for a Stanley Cup parade?
I'm thinking the Bedard-Celebrini Bridge over to the North Shore. We could use another span.
Yeah. Three lanes each way, double decker. Love that.
Saying. Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Have a good weekend.
Can I get in trouble today? Am I going to get
we'll see. We'll see what the aggregators do with you.
Thanks, boys. Be good.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center and the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee. Game night turns into a game weekend at the Wall Center. From puck drop to last call, everything you need right outside your door. Stay where the fans stay. wallcenter.com. Well, as promised, now our discussion on BC Place Stadium and the future of it, who controls it, who owns it. After, well, frankly, some mixed messaging on the part of Minister Ravi Kahlon over the last week and a bit. We're both a little confused by what the minister is telling different media outlets and, frankly, different teams around the city. So you see the City News headline saying the province is now delivering a clear message. The stadium is not for sale, except he didn't actually say that. In fact, the message is anything but clear, City News. Jobs and Economic Growth Minister Ravi Kahlon tells City News, we did get a letter from the BC Lions saying they would be interested, but we're not interested. To be clear, no one has put a formal bid in to buy it. So he didn't exactly close the door on selling BC Place. And if he did, that would represent quite a quick about face from what he said last week when the Whitecaps expressed interest, or Patrick Johnson had that story saying the Whitecaps would be interested in not just operating BC Place, but purchasing it.
My interpretation, Matt, because Kahlon has been everywhere, and
you heard him on.
I forget if it was NW or CBC, but talking about it. And basically, the gist was, and the host, and I apologize because I've been, with radio gone, I've been listening to those two outlets, and I forget where I was. But the host even summarized it at the end. So no formal bid, said the host, but they would need at least $300 million to cover the actual building and land, and then another $120 to service the debt. So basically $420.
Right.
And I think what Kahlon is trying to get across is you can say you're interested all you like, but unless you're willing to write a big check and start with a number, we're not interested in haggling for weeks and months about the because we're not actively selling.
Fair.
And
look, Bob Mackin dug it up. The assessment of the building is about $150 million and change. The most recent assessment. The assessment of the land is about $70 million. So a total value of $225 million. And I mean, that's a BC provincial assessment. Like, so you have the minister putting an assessment on it that's quite a bit higher. And I can understand why he would do that for an embattled government. And Premier David Eby is most certainly embattled, including within his own caucus. but it's leading to confusion. And frankly, it's leading to a little bit of a split and a division amongst the fans of the two teams, the two tenants, the BC Lions and Vancouver Whitecaps FC. Here's Brian, who runs the BC Lions Den social media account and podcast. One thing to take away and chew on, in the original statement that kicked this off, Ravi Kahlon said this. Ravi Kahlon, BC's Minister for Jobs and Economic Growth, told Postmedia's Patrick Johnson that a sale of BC Place to the MLS club is one option being considered. Maybe lease, quote, maybe purchase, Kahlon said. If the Whitecaps want to discuss buying the stadium outright, the province says it's willing to listen. We're open to the conversation if the parameters are there. So they would consider selling BC Place to the Whitecaps, but not the Lions? Is that what we take away from this?
No, I think it's just poor communication. I don't think we only want to
And
deal
Ravi's
with that.
usually a really good communicator and clear communicator.
And
But he seems all over the map here. I do wonder if what he said last week with regards to selling it to the Whitecaps, if he got his hand slapped from Premier Eby or somebody more senior in the government who said, nah.
And I don't want to shut up Ravi Kahlon.
No,
I like the transparency. I
absolutely.
want to encourage the transparency. I think he just needs to get on point as to what he really says and means. That's all.
That's right.
Keep talking, sir.
Ravi, we want you on that wall. We need you on that wall.
Yeah. But just let's streamline your thoughts and your desires here.
And look, if the price tag for BC Place is 400 and some million, I can't imagine a Mardoman or the Whitecaps are buying.
And that's where I thought the desire would be, and that's why I said from the get-go, I don't see it happen.
I go back to what our great listener and friend Colin in planning said. Look, a lot of government models is they own the land. They sell you the facility on a lease, 99 years or something like that. Of course, that would make it more economically viable for the Lions or the Whitecaps or both, dare to dream, if they could get together.
And he did address this. He said, quote, "We've heard there is interest in exploring the Whitecaps potentially leasing BC Place, and we're open to that, but we need to see a proposal about what that would look like."
Right. Whitecaps are dragging their feet again on the proposal, or is it just too early days? What's the takeaway there? I mean, it took them forever to, actually put in paper what Don Garber was talking about last fall, MLS commissioner. We'd be interested in running BC Place. And finally, it took like really cattle prodding from the government to say, okay, well, Whitecaps, put it on paper, show us something.
Again, there's a real game of chicken here because the Whitecaps are not going anywhere for next season. There's no way they're being shuttled off somewhere temporary in Vegas or anywhere else for next season. They are going to be here. So there is runway. It feels like the clock is ticking and that it needs to happen in the next 2 months. And I think we'd all loved some finality in the next 2 months. But I think there is more time than that. But they are doing damage to the fan base. Like, I think that's a risk, right? Like we talked about it. Uncertainty
at some point, the fans start asking themselves the question, as great as it is from an entertainment point of view, the fact that we're winning, we're contending, and I'm fully on board with all of that, except if the future of the club here in Vancouver is in doubt, am I just going to enjoy every last drop until they have it, or do I have a discussion with myself, Liz, like what's the bigger picture of the end game here? If the team is going to...
Well, the Whitecaps have said from the beginning, we don't want to give false hope. So we only want to speak officially when there's something legitimate to speak about. So they're not going to get into the rumor mongering business. But I think they're like, and we don't know because we're not privy. If there is any semblance of, like, my advice would be the soonest you can lay a cookie crumb.
No question.
Go back to our first segment, Matt. There is, again, I reiterate, I see no news from the Vancouver Canucks today. But look at the reaction from the fan base to that press release about nothing. This is a show about nothing.
It's fair.
And yet the fan base like half of the fan base at least, if not more, is ecstatic about this Canucks press release. So again, my advice would be if you can lay a cookie crumb, it'll go a long way.
And look, I understand there may be some constraints involved here with whoever is kicking the tires on this, not wanting it to get out. I understand that.
There's that too, for sure.
I've heard Don Garber, like Gary Bettman, tries to keep a very firm grasp on what gets out publicly. But at some point, as Blake, at some point, if you're the Whitecaps and you're trying to convince your fans that, look, we're going to be here next year, we're going to be here as long as we possibly can, you've got to feed that beast. You got to fuel that a little bit. We'll see. Now on the pitch, Caps face LAFC Saturday at BC Place before what's expected to be a huge crowd. 35,000 is our last estimate.
Yeah, and still 48 hours to sell.
Right.
And
this is a terrific rivalry match, of course, featuring LAFC and the huge Korean star, Sonny. We have a neighbor here at the Wall Center. He runs the Nails. His name is Sean. He's Korean, and I see him yesterday. I said, Sean, are you going to the match on Saturday? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I think I'm going to go. He says, in the Korean community, if you don't go, people will have questions.
Oh, really? There's an obligation.
Why weren't they at the Sonny match? He is the grand national hero of Korea and has been for an awfully long time. I mean, he's known as the greatest Asian footballer ever, right? So
bagged a couple last night in the All-Star game.
He sure did.
Yeah.
And Blake, we have something terrific to talk about with regards to the Caps on the pitch. Ryan Gauld is healthy. We had him on the show last week. Thomas Muller is back from MLS All-Star Game. We haven't seen these two stars on the pitch together all that much in Muller's one-year tenure here in Vancouver. But with no Seb Berhalter and injuries on the wing, it's all hands on deck in the near term. What do you think about a Ryan Gauld-Thomas Muller partnership on the pitch?
The curiosity for Jesper Sorensen when he does feel like both of them are in top fitness. And right now, Jesper Sorensen's got the challenge of determining that. Like, do you start both of them? Because he's used them as basically one single player over the last couple of weeks. When Muller's on the pitch, Gauld's not. When Gauld's on the pitch, Muller's not. A few minutes together last match. But on the pitch going forward, starting from the get-go in the starting 11, who's where? My guess is you put Gauld more advanced up the pitch alongside Brian White. That's where the chemistry has been ancestrally. Those two work well. So almost into a two-striker. Maybe you're dropping Gauld and you're giving Gauld the ability to track back defensively. And then Muller sits back more as a traditional attacking midfielder and finding his space as the Ramdo. So that's my guess, but who knows? Maybe Jesper Sorensen sees it differently. Maybe he asks less of Muller defensively and stations him higher, thinking that Gauld can come back and help out more. I don't know.
With respects to Brian White and the now departed Seb Berhalter, these are their best two footballers.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm just excited that we get to see their two best players on the pitch together, which we haven't been able to see because of the injuries to Ryan Gauld. That era for the Whitecaps gets going here on Saturday.
And I know it sounds like spin, but Ryan Gauld really never did play last year, and the Caps were that good. And Ryan Gauld reminded us in the FC Cincinnati game a week ago how good he is. Like, he looked spectacular in that game. Like, I know you don't want to hear that Gauld is the replacement for Berhalter, but he kind of is, because he was not really part of this MLS Cup team last year.
And let's not forget, prior to Lionel Messi arriving, this was a league MVP candidate in Ryan Gauld.
Like, it sounds like a our deadline acquisition, our trade deadline acquisitions are so-and-so and so-and-so who've been injured. Like, I get you're hearing that and it's triggering, but it's kind of true. We're excited to tell you that it is going to be exciting at BC Place with all those fans that you talked about. Caps are in phase 1 of the League's Cup starting next week. League's Cup is a 4-week competition with teams from MLS and Liga MX in Mexico. Not only do teams play for the League's Cup trophy, but they also have CONCACAF Champions Cup spots up for grabs. Third place and the final will determine the 3 clubs that qualify in that direction. Caps can qualify through Canadian Championship as well, but if you get one way, you're less pressure on the other. They have 3 matches, 2 at BC Place in phase 1 of the competition, hosting Atlanta FC from Mexico City on August 4th, and then FC Juarez on August the 7th. That's a Friday. Both matches 7:30 kickoffs. Caps then head for an away match versus Tigres on August the 11th. So for tickets to get into Leagues Cup, check out whitecapsfc.com/Leagues Cup. And you're going to be reminded how good a full barn looks on Saturday. Let's fill it up for these Leagues Cup matches as well.
And Axel Schuster promised additions after losing Seb Berhalter, a younger player and an older player. Well, we've got our younger player. What can you tell us about him, Blake? Quasi Poku?
Yes, Quasi Poku. He was at one time, he still may be the reigning transfer champion, if you will, out of the CPL. So he was with Cavalry. They transferred him to Belgium for a then record. It may still be transfer fee. He did fairly well over there and then suffered an injury last year and wiped out his entire season. And that reduced some confidence, I guess, from his Belgian squad. And so he's comes in here and he's already been capped by Jesse Marsh. Got into a match against Panama, I believe, in 2024. He's played way back as a left back, but more recently as a forward/striker. But, I mean, the fact that he played as a left back for much of his career just leads you to believe he's got a lot of versatility. Like, you know, if injuries pop up, the Ralph Priso of the forward ranks, maybe, something like that, you know. And he's 23, so he's not super young, but there's still some development left there. So, interesting.
If Ralph Priso was a baseball player, he'd be the guy who plays every position except for catcher.
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah. And he's available this weekend, by the way. Ralph's back.
Sticking with soccer, there is a huge fight going on in the world of global soccer after FIFA under Gianni Infantino talked about investors buying stakes in the World Cup, and one of those investors being the brother of Jared Kushner, of course, Donald Trump's son-in-law. Infantino and Trump got very close during this World Cup. And now you have UEFA, which is, of course, the European Federation, saying its national teams have agreed to boycott FIFA tournaments in protest of these plans to privatize the World Cup. Gianni Infantino has offered to double the money countries will get to $40 million each if they approve his new FIFA Forward Enterprise Scheme. CONCACAF, with our buddy Victor Montagliani, FIFA vice president, is, quote, deeply concerned by this proposal, but stopped short of a boycott, or at least as of yet. Many are saying this could be the end of Infantino as FIFA. You have Sepp Blatter criticizing him on social media. Somehow Sepp Blatter has another chapter where he is the voice of reason and the voice of proper procedure and integrity and all of the things that Sepp Blatter was not as past FIFA.
So for people wondering why
president.
This is a big deal, never mind just that it's the sanctity of the game. There's a few of those people. But more importantly, actual brass tacks here is it is a nonprofit right now, FIFA. Therefore, transparency is mandated. Everything they do has to be available to be seen. The minute it goes behind into private enterprise, they can do things in the dark. And when they do things in the dark, it threatens the possibility of an even playing field. It opens the door to corruption. And especially if you're not a country named the United States, Spain, England, you're going to wonder if you are ever playing on an even playing field. You're going to wonder if the other countries that provide the bigger bulk of dollars are winning favor. And it'll be tough to prove one way or the other.
Every American red card from henceforth will be rescinded, as we saw at the World Cup with the intervention of their president. You say everything that FIFA does has to be accounted for. There was that matter of getting the World Cup to Qatar, which
but that
eventually led to a police raid and people going to jail. But hey,
I mean, that's the thing is that that was the scandal, though, is that it was tried to be put in the dark and it got put in the light. But if it's a private enterprise, all that stuff is fair game.
If it's a private enterprise, paper bags full of money, that works.
That works.
It's procedure. It's just the way we do business. Well, one FIFA tournament is going on, this U20 CONCACAF Championship, and Canada gets a draw yesterday against Honduras in their second match. They have 4 points through 2 matches. They got Jamaica coming up on Saturday. A reminder, this is a qualifier for the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics.
It's the
also
only
a
spot,
qualifier
too.
for the U20.
And it's the only
World
spot,
Cup.
Matt. Like there's one spot available because the U.S. is already in as hosts. So this is a big deal. It's our only way to get in.
Big game tonight for the BC Lions. We've talked about it. Look, it's a long CFL season. And, of course, we've seen the Lions come back from 1-6 and win a Grey Cup in 2011 here on home turf. But don't want to try and do that again. 1-5. They head into 4-3 Winnipeg tonight. And they are expecting a very healthy crowd at Princess Auto Stadium. They have already sold, and this was last night, 31,000 tickets. They are down to 1,200 tickets remaining. It could very well be a sold-out house tonight at Princess Auto Stadium as the Bombers and Lions get together. And, let's remember, I know things went Saskatchewan's way last year, but Winnipeg was the derby, right? Was the mountaintop for the Lions during the Rick Campbell era. They just kept coming up against these terrific Blue Bomber teams under Mike O'Shea, weren't able to get on over them and win the West. Winnipeg is still a very good team, even if they aren't defending Grey Cup champions, even if they are in third place.
I love that they're going into the Coliseum here, Matt, because it'll snap them to attention.
I sure hope so. There are easier places for a rookie quarterback making his first start to play than in before 32,000 people.
Yeah, the QB might be the exception there, yeah.
But, look, excited to see Caden Salter and what he can do tonight under center in his first CFL start. We are, 4 days away from the Major League Baseball trade deadline now. It is on Monday. And more drips and drabs of information are spilling out from the baseball insiders about the Toronto Blue Jays' plans. Ken Rosenthal, first up here.
I love the headline.
Well, and look, here's the thing. We talked about this with Keegan Matheson yesterday. The Blue Jays are going to be sellers of their UFAs, and they have a number of UFAs. But this is also an aggressive front office that expects to be competitive again next year. You're seeking a long-term option in center field. You're seeking starting pitching for next year. Hell, you may even be seeking a long-term option at shortstop if you're done with Andres Jimenez holding that spot down on a regular basis. So Rosenthal predicting it might be a little of column A, a little of column B. And then John Paul Morosi is getting more specific, linking the Jays and the Philadelphia Phillies as trade partners. Philadelphia has multiple needs. They're in the playoff hunt. But listen to the ties that bind between these two franchises. Phillies pitching coach worked with Kevin Gausman in Cincinnati. In fact, he's credited with turning Kevin Gausman around and into the pitcher he is today. Gausman, of course, has a terrific postseason history from last year. Jeff Hoffman, former Phillies closer. Jay signed him away. He's looked very good of late after not being very good for a long time. Phillies are quite comfortable with him. He's got 1 year left, but might this be the time to get off what is a very big ticket for a reliever who's no longer your closer? George Springer, Dalton Varsho. Dalton Varsho, as a matter of fact, is named after Darren Dalton, the Phillies legend. His father, Gary Varsho, and Darren Dalton played together with the Phillies. Gary works for the Phillies organization. And, of course, they're skippered by Don Mattingly, who was the Blue Jays bench coach last year, and he knows all of these guys.
And as we saw, they share a practice facility.
They are right up the road, the Jays and Phillies. Clearwater, Florida for the Phillies, Dunedin for the Blue Jays. In fact, I've attended a game at the Phillies spring training.
Sure.
It's a lovely little ballpark. So we anticipate seeing a trade there. Vancouver Canadians win again last night. They beat Spokane 5-3. Troy Guthrie, congratulations, making his Nat Bailey debut. He worked 5 innings, gave up 7 hits, walked none, struck out 5 for the win. Number 16 Jays prospect Daniel Garagos tonight. He of the inflated strikeout total. It's Pride Night at the ballpark with a button giveaway and post-game fireworks. And we're going to be down there, as I mentioned to Harm, at the new Canadian Club patio down the first base line. We're going to have plenty of reviews, some social media content as well from the ballpark tonight. A reminder, we are getting low on home games remaining for the Seas here. 1 month to go. Get your tickets. Plan ahead. They are a most popular ticket in August. 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com.
And we want them to bury Spokane. Get them out of the way so they're just chasing 2 teams above them for that playoff spot.
Right. Do you actually believe the Canucks will one day bring home one of the local superstars, Celebrini and Bedard? It was our poll question yesterday. The options were yes to Bedard, yes to Macklin, yes to both, or neither. People said
yes to both.
No, they said neither.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
45%.
wow.
Both got 27%. Bedard got 20%. Macklin got 8%. Garrett Saw said, not unless the team is sold. Yeah, we saw that. Superstars don't tend to choose teams where the ownership isn't top notch, where you don't have expenditures on practice facility.
Per today's news, the practice facility better be built in the next 5 years.
You got to get it done if you're going to have any chance with these two. Ryan says player movement is changing in this era where today's superstars don't feel loyalty to the clubs that drafted them. With more U.S. players going to the U.S. teams, it may be time for that Canadians want to play for their hometown teams. I can hear them there.
Could very well.
Don says they have a plan. Both signed 5-year deals, going to be UFAs and still be young. They will be coming home. And G&V says, my vote is no. Players want to maximize their earnings, particularly in tax-free states. Hell, we couldn't even attract Sakic and Brindamore home. Nor Korea, nor Weber, nor Price. I mean, go down the list.
Yeah.
I did not have an E or an O from yesterday's show, Blake. You were once again perfect. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to our assorted channels, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. We are live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. No show tomorrow or Monday with the holiday. We will be back Tuesday through Thursday next week. And, of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.